Call to order the regular city council meeting for Monday, March 18th, 2024 at 5:30 PM. I'd like to welcome everybody here for this evening's city council meeting, regular city council meeting. At this time, I'd ask you to please silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate to limit any interruptions. Moving on to item number 1 on the agenda, and that's roll call.
Burlingame.
Yep.
Evans.
Yes.
Janser.
Here.
Olson. Here. Pittner. Fajagula.
Here.
Ross.
Here. Item number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item number 3, and that's the mayor's report. I have a few things that, since our last meeting that I have attended, just kind of going down the list here. I did meet with CP Casey Rail on the topic of this last weekend's letter. They're going to be bringing a steam locomotive to Minot here. I believe it's the end of April. It'll be a pretty big event for downtown. Also, meeting with the North Dakota League of Cities, Military Affairs. We had a suicide symposium planning meeting, Alcohol Ordinance Review Committee, Task Force 21. We also had attended a ribbon cutting for the U.S. Olympic sled hockey competition that took place out at Mesa over the last weekend. Chamber Commerce EDC annual meeting, and gave a welcome to the Western Plains Opera Gala, a short presentation at the Pheasants for the Future. Attended the sled hockey game between the U.S. and Canada on Saturday. And also just a couple of congratulations to throw out there. First of all, to the Minot State women's hockey team for just coming up short in their quest for a national title over the weekend, but still represented Minot very well, so congratulations. Also, congratulations to our neighbors up north, the West Hope Newburgh Sioux, for their outstanding performance the entire weekend at the North Dakota Class B Boys Basketball Championships that happened over the weekend here at Minot State Dome. I also want to take a moment to pay our condolences, or my condolences, to a 30-year veteran of the city of Minot as an employee. He spent 19 years. Merle Beisch passed away, and they had his funeral over the weekend. Merle was a 19-year veteran of the Minot Police Department, and then finished his career as the street superintendent for the city of Minot. We'll miss his smile, we'll miss his wit, but we'll never forget his 30 years dedication and passion to the residents of the city of Minot. So to Bonnie, Susan, and Summer, thank you for sharing Merle, your father and husband, with us all here in the city of Minot. And with that, are there any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 4, and that's the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Before I open up for any questions with regards to the memo that's available in the packet, just provide a reminder that the city of Minot is playing host to the North Dakota League of Cities tomorrow and Wednesday as part of their spring workshop. So we'll have many elected officials and city staffs from throughout the state that will be convening here in Minot. We have a series of tours and different things showcasing the great things that we do here in our community for other communities across the state to observe and learn from and ask questions. So we look forward to our visitors from across the state for that, and we appreciate the League of Cities for asking Minot to host that this spring. But with that, I'd be happy to open up for any questions with regards to anything in the city manager memo report.
Any questions for the city manager? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 5 on the agenda. That is, consider the report to the Planning Commission. Item 5.1, major subdivision preliminary plat, Gold Nugget 7th edition. What are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd move we approve the item as recommended by the Planning Commission.
We have a motion by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Paul. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Fajagula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans. Yes.
Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, that's consent, our consent agenda. There are 21 items on our consent agenda this evening, and are there any that need to be pulled? Seeing none, what are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Paul, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa, is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Pittner.
Yes.
Fajagula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans. Yes. Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Moving on to item number 7 on the agenda, that's our action items. 7.1, the first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 3, City Officers, Division 2, City Manager of the Code of Ordinances for the city. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Lisa, a second by Paul. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Fajagula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans. Janser.
Yes.
Moving on to item number 8 on the agenda, that's personal appearances. Now is an opportunity for those who wish to address the council to come forward and come forward to the podium. Just asking that we keep your time to 5 minutes out of respect for others who wish to speak to the council.
Good evening. My name is Joan Habaker. I live right here in Minot. And what I'd like to address is probably something maybe you guys haven't even addressed yet. But I read this article in the newspaper, Local Hotel Concerns Moved to the Front Burner. And I'd just like to say a couple things about that. I understand that there are incidences of concern, but there are in every business. I went online to look at reviews for Minot hotels and motels, and most of them get 4 out of 5 review on TripAdvisor. If it's true that, and I quote the article, there are a small percentage of hotels that are meeting or exceeding, and that's a small percentage of hotels that are meeting or exceeding customer expectations. The others are not even coming close. Then that does not, and end quote, then that does not reflect on the reviews on TripAdvisor. Let me ask you this. If you go to a restaurant or hotel and have a bad experience, do you blame it on the city? Or do you blame it on the, and I'm saying blame it on the establishment? Me personally, I will go to the establishment management. I don't even think about going to the city with problems I have with someone in an establishment. It sounds like out of maybe thousands or tens of thousands of people staying in Minot, that a few have had a bad experience and voiced it to someone in authority in the city government. From the article, concerns from entities interested in bringing events to Minot are raised infrequently, and Minot is not alone in North Dakota or beyond. Also, Visit Minot Executive Director Ms. Schoenrock, when asked if licensing would help, states, and I quote again, hopefully, possibly, end quote. So the other issue I have with this is, number one, First District already inspects our motels yearly and in response to complaints, yet the article says that the city possibly could team up with First District Health Unit. My question, at what added cost to the city taxpayers, and we know that any fees for licensing will be added to the customer's costs, and what more can First District do than they are already doing? Because they already yearly inspect these places. So what more are we asking them to do if we're going to team up with them? Before we add more government bureaucracy, and we all know we have plenty of that at both city, state, and federal levels, let's maybe ask Ms. Schoenrock and her staff at Visit Minot, because I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, that they are city employees? No, they're not? Okay, I'm wrong on that then. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. But maybe can ask them anyway, if they can brainstorm and see if they can come up with some way to address some of these issues. And I guess what I'm thinking, there are a few hotels, motels, restaurants that have inadvertently hired staff who are stressed, at times overworked because of sick calls. Their coworkers haven't been able to come in. And then maybe they say something to someone who construes it as rude or doesn't get a room cleaned or to their standards or whatever the issue actually is. So I'm not real sure, I guess in my mind, that this would necessitate government intervention, I guess is what would be concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing on, now is your opportunity if you wish to address the council.
Good evening, Mayor Ross and Aldermen of Minot. My name is Amanda Chappelle, and I'm the General Manager of the Hampton Inn and Suites Minot Airport and serve on both the Minot Innkeepers Association and the Visit Minot Board. Today, I am here to speak to you as a hotel operator in regards to the article in the Minot Daily News that was titled Hotel Industry Concerns Moved to the Front Burner, published on March 7, 2024, in which the hotel industry's standards in Minot were called into question publicly by Mayor Tom Ross. In responding to your concerns as a hotel operator in Minot, I would like to start off by stating that poorly run hotels are not a new issue or an issue limited to just Minot. I have worked in the hotel industry in Minot for over 20 years. Back when I started my career, there were seedy hotels that we avoided sending guests to. What is the city doing about these specific hotels? No one running a reputable, well-run hotel wants these places of business classified as hotels. Let's call them what they are: hostels and homeless shelters. By changing the classifications, we can lower the chance of tourists having a negative experience while staying in Minot. The safety and well-being of our visitors is a major priority of hotels that are operated correctly. Many of us follow strict regulations put into place by hotel chains that we are a part of. However, all hotels in Minot have had poor reviews at some point in time. We deal with complaints and difficult customers daily. One of my objections is that this article was written tearing down an industry as a whole based on commentary from one tourist. Why would a city official want to destroy an industry's reputation and business by making public blasts about our industry without so much as walking through all of our doors or having conversation with all of our operators? These statements impact more than just hotels. They impact the city and sales tax revenues. The reputation of our city should be a priority, especially when competing for tourists, businesses, and new residents. And what about hotels that have been doing it right this whole time? You do realize there are nationally award-winning hotels in this city, but this article lumps us all together. Your comments in the article leave it up for speculation. Front page negative news from our city still impacts us with questions and concerns from our guests. Additionally, the article addressed the issue of bed bugs. Bed bugs are not a cleanliness issue. There is no way of preventing them. They travel with the guest and are brought into the building. Hotels, hospitals, airlines, theaters, assisted living facilities, nursing homes have all dealt with bed bugs. Coincidentally, bed bugs are annoying, disgusting, and costly to get rid of. However, bed bugs do not transmit diseases like ticks or mosquitoes do. No hotelier wants bed bugs on their property, and we do everything in our power to get rid of them once they are discovered. According to the article, the answer to solving the problem is licensing. Currently, hotels are licensed annually by First District Health. Are you planning on rewriting First District rules for hotels? Who is going to decide what the new rules are, and who is going to enforce the new rules, as you don't seem to be happy with the current ones? Will negative guest commentary now be a code violation? The main reason the discussion of new licensing has even been discussed is because there seems to be an issue of non-collection of lodging tax dollars by the city of Minot. There are currently no penalties in place if lodging taxes are not paid. However, Visit Minot is still required to promote these hotels equally. In fact, Visit Minot is specifically kept in the dark about which hotels are or are not paying their lodging tax dollars. If you change the ordinance on lodging tax collections, who is going to be responsible for the collection enforcement, as it has fallen by the wayside for years? Even though First District licenses are non-transferable upon the change of ownership, there seems to be a major disconnect with the city of Minot as to when hotel changes take place. New licenses would not be needed if there was better communication or an SOP in place. Additionally, there seems to be no penalty if a new license isn't requested by the new owner. The city needs to know who is running these hotels and keep some sense of community and accountability within the hotel industry. A hotel building is a 50-plus year commitment to a city. No one builds a hotel just to tear it down in 20 years. The same buildings are bought and sold repeatedly. There should be a higher bar to entry to building a new hotel in Minot to prevent the overbuilding that happened during the oil boom, or, as many hotel franchises require, building improvements to take place upon the change of ownership. I encourage economic growth of our community and our business, and I am inspired by the fact that people from outside North Dakota want to invest in our community. It is how we grow and how we endure. And although COVID isn't in the past, the economic impact is still felt by every industry, especially business owners and investors. The number of times a hotel sale has taken place in Minot since 2020 would astound most of you. I do not believe you are looking for more bureaucracy, but the city's knowledge of who is responsible for these assets is vital. So my final comment is, why hotels? Are bars, restaurants, and stores next? Well, restaurants in Minot now have ordinances and licenses in place because of Facebook complaints? Do you truly feel any city that values sales tax and tourism dollars would publicly tear down the tourism and hospitality industry? Is our goal not the same, to create a safe, warm, and welcome environment that makes Minot an inviting community to visit and to become a part of? While I agree that things need to change, I am highly disappointed in the manner that city leadership has decided to handle the situation. Publicly tearing down an industry for political fodder is not the way to make it happen. When there are specific issues related to tax collection or public safety, these should be addressed fairly and through a systematic regulatory measures rather than blanket regulations that could potentially have negative economic impact on our city. I plead with you to instead work with city and industry leaders to make the changes happen that make the magic of Minot felt by all who are here. Thank you.
Now is the time for those who wish to address the council. You can step forward.
Hi, Mayor Ross, Alderman, council members. My name is Amber Wright, and I'm the General Manager of Extended Stay America. It used to be the Noble Inn. I don't have anything prepared, but what I do want to say and go on record is that Amanda Chappelle spoke very eloquently, and I agree with every single thing that she said. I do honestly believe that we have a beautiful city, filled with amazing and wonderful people. And as a hospitality person, I think I was born to be in the hospitality. I love people. But even as a Pollyanna, who can probably take the most cranky old person coming in and upset and turn them around, I don't always win. It's not a perfect world. We don't always make everybody happy, as you know, sitting on this council. And it's hard and it's difficult. It's not an easy job, but we do our best. There are issues, Mayor, that need to be addressed in the hospitality industry, but it is not tearing the good ones down and lumping them in with the ones that need to be addressed. I appreciate all that you guys do, and as voters and as taxpayer, I'm putting my trust in you that you guys will make the right decision and that you will come up with something. Why do we have a First District Health? Is because they do come in and they do inspect our hotels. And we do have rules and regulations that we have to abide by. But there are hotels in this city, there are issues and they need to be addressed. But please don't lump us all in that. Don't let one person or two people or three people come up and give a negative review and lump us all in there. We are all doing our best in a very hard and a rough time. We're overbuilt, we have too many hotels, and we're all striving to make it right and to do the best. So I wanted to say thank you, Amanda Chappelle, for what you said, and thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council? Now is your opportunity. If not, we will move on to item number 9 in the agenda, that is miscellaneous and discussion items. A wonderful segue into this discussion. And I'm the one who asked to have this put on the agenda. And contrary to emails and contrary to comments, this was not a knee-jerk reaction to one email sent to me. I've been having discussions about this with city staff and others in the community for several months now. So this was, maybe you can just call this maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, and me deciding to bring it onto the agenda to really have a solution-based discussion to see what we can do. And that's really what it is. It's going to be a positive discussion, getting feedback from the council, getting feedback from others who are in the community, to where we can get some answers and get some education on maybe there's something we can do together, and maybe there's something we should be doing together. I in no means did I mean to paint a broad brush, and if that happened, then I'll take that on my shoulders, absolutely. But we're here to have a positive, solution-based discussion, and that's it. I mean, that's really what it's all about. We have Lisa from First District. Lisa, are you able to step forward for a few questions? Please, Lisa, if you can state your name and your qualifications, or what do you do?
Absolutely. Hello, Mayor. Hello, members of the council. My name is Lisa Westman. I'm the Director of Environmental Health at First District Health Unit. Mr. Ross brought me in to be part of a discussion about the hotel licensing that's come up as of late, and we are responsible for licensing. We were addressed.
So talk about the process. Let's start it off by saying, what does a hotel have to go through to receive, is it an actual license, an operator's license, or certification, or talk about that?
Yes, it's an actual license. They apply to First District, and we will go in. There's a couple of different, if it's a new build, there's a lot more involved. If it's something that's currently existing, they fill out an application. We get all the right information from them, the contact information. We go in, we'll do a pre-opening inspection, we'll look at everything. They are responsible for submitting inspection reports, fire inspection, electrical inspection, plumbing inspection to our office along with their application. We do a pre-inspection, we talk to them about what needs to be fixed or addressed, whatever issues there may be, and they're given a license. The license are given on an annual basis, so they renew every year in January. As far as the renewal goes, I know we discussed that. The renewal, as long as there's no outstanding major issues, they get to renew their license. If there's something going on, well, our inspector will address that. She was correct in saying they're non-transferable. So if there is a new owner, then that process starts all over again, or it should. She was also correct in saying there's a disconnect with that. We're not even notified sometimes when there's a change of ownership. So sometimes we're playing catch-up as well. Because if there is a change in ownership, if the issues that were brought up at a previous inspection, if those current owners are trying to address something, but now there's new owners, those should be addressed with the new owners immediately. They don't get that time. So we're constantly trying to play catch-up if we don't know that there's new owners. So there is a disconnect there. That's basically the process. If there's other questions?
But really, I mean, your process focuses more on the building, the property itself, and the sanitation of the property.
Absolutely, yeah. The health, sanitation, life safety, those types of things we're in there looking at, yeah.
Okay. We'll start with Scott.
So are the reports that are done that you do, are those available on public? So if I want to go visit for a hotel, can I find those on your website?
Yes, we have a public portal, and we're in there. You click the public portal, and you put in the name or partial name, and it'll come up with the name of the hotel.
Any more, Scott?
Oh, that's one.
Paul?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In that same vein, can you send us like a template of like what your inspections look like? Is it a blank form, like a fillable PDF form that you could send us?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can look at them online for the completed ones.
Okay, so the ones online are a completed
They're the
entire,
completed.
it's not just a
They're
summary.
basically a PDF. They'll say, do not copy or something on them, but they're the same things that we use. We do electronic inspections, and then when we sync them in our computer, they're automatically uploaded to that portal, so everything's available. And then, just to kind of go back, we use a code. There's rules and responsibilities, lodging code. We're directed by the state to license these facilities, and then we have a code that they have to go by. So we've got our facility code that everybody follows. They follow the same rules. We inspect on an annual basis. That's our standard operating procedure, but we also do complaint-based. So anytime we get complaints, we follow up on those as well. And that goes for any facility.
Thank you. Any other questions of Lisa? Lisa, is there anything that we can do to help you do your job better? Or more effectively or more efficiently?
I guess I'm just, would like to be part of this discussion to improve whatever. There's obviously some issues going on. I think we're all kind of working in silos, and maybe the communication could be better if there's something that you need from these facilities or something that we need. We've been in contact with fire, we've been in contact with building and that. So I think just opening those lines of communication and maybe not operating in these silos and working together on this would be great. I think that would benefit everybody. I think that's really it. Yeah, and then complaints. I guess, like I said, we are complaint-based, but we don't always hear them all. If they don't come to our office, there's nothing we can do about them. We hear complaints floating out there and we don't go searching. We're not searching Facebook. We're not doing those types of things. They need to report a complaint to us, and then we'll go and do some follow-up.
And that's what would trigger it? They would have to go directly to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or to your office? I'm not saying
Yeah,
directly to
anybody
you,
in our
but-
office. And environmental health, we've got 4 field staff that do the inspections, so.
So for instance, let's jump on to and I'm sorry, Lisa, I'll get you, but let's jump on to if there was a serious issue with a restaurant, foodborne illness, and I know you've dealt with those.
Yep.
I mean, you've shut those down.
Yep.
Okay. Have you had instances where you've shut down hotels, or you've shut down rooms, or wings, or floors?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Rooms, we do a lot. We don't want to inhibit business either if, hotels are large. So if part of the hotel is doing okay, that's fine. We've shut down rooms and wings. We've done, it's really hard to pull a license because they do, there's lots of people in there and there's lots of process to that. So if we are able to just do a room or a wing and we can move people around, that's ideal. And then we'll just do multiple visits to get whatever needs to be fixed.
What, for instance, would trigger shutting down a room what you've experienced?
Water damage, issues with pipes, issues with, leaky roofs, something like that. We see a lot of water damage, bed bugs maybe. Complaints about a dirty room, we've seen a lot of broken plumbing if they've got, the faucet came off or something like that. We would shut down rooms. That's about it. We do a lot of talk with, she addressed the bed bug issue. There's recommendations on how to treat that. So we'll shut down a room or whole section to try to get that treated.
Okay. Thank you. Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah, well, and two questions, actually. So, if I'm understanding this correctly, there is no licensing that is going through the city of Minot right now. All the licensing is going through First District Health Unit. Do I
Correct.
understand that right?
Yep.
Okay. And so if you needed to put more teeth into one of the expectations, then you would have the authority to do that and not us, correct? Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Steph?
And I just want to point out one thing that may be generating some confusion here is that other cities in North Dakota do have some licenses for lodging establishment, but unlike First District Health Unit, they have health units that are within the city. So Bismarck, Grand Forks, for instance, they have city departments that have duties and responsibilities comparable to First District Health Unit. So there may be some confusion with the complainants as to where they need to direct those complaints. If they think that that is a city department, it's not. It would be something that would be forwarded to First District Health Unit. So I don't know, First District, if you have a preference, if the city should receive complaints like that regarding duties and responsibilities that you hold. Would you prefer that we direct the original complainant to you to file the complaint? Or is that something that city staff could just reach out to you with the complaint themselves?
We do like to talk to the original complainant because sometimes, we get all the information then and maybe there's certain questions that we want to ask specifically, but we'll take other complaints. We don't want just, you don't want to do the Facebook thing, right? Like word of mouth or, anything like that. We want, legit complaints if there's something that needs to be addressed and followed up on. So we would prefer to hear from the original complainant, but
Sure.
we'll
And
have
Mayor,
discussions about anything. So.
I can just continue briefly. I've looked through your requirements for facilities, and it looks like you do have some options there that you can take to enforce compliance with your requirements. And it looks like you can seek administrative and judicial remedies, license suspensions, and if necessary, referral for criminal charges. So it makes sense to me that you'd also want to receive the information firsthand. If you decide to seek some of those remedies, you've got somebody who has firsthand knowledge that can testify as to what they saw, observed, and experienced.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
At this time, just before I call Steph up, I just want to have City Manager Harold Stewart. Harold, if you can address the lodging tax, the collections of it, and the issues that we're dealing with as the city when it comes to the collection of those.
Yeah, so one of the challenges here, so first and foremost, the city acts as a pass-through for these lodging taxes. So, and the city of Minot is unique in the fact that we collect these revenues directly as opposed to a lot of other communities that rely on the state to do that collection. As part of that, that allows us to do some more oversight with regards to making sure that those revenues that are being paid are accurate. And so our internal auditor, who reports to my office, spends a lot of time every year reviewing these records and making sure that this lodging tax is properly reported and paid and collected. So that is something unique with the city of Minot, that we do that directly ourselves versus contracting with the state to do that on our behalf. And so in the process of doing this, some of the things that the auditor has identified is Because some of these properties change ownership so frequently, it becomes difficult for us to get access to records to verify that what has been reported is accurate and true and full. And then trying to collect can be difficult as well. So once we receive those records, if we identify that in a previous year that it was underreported and then additional lodging tax is due, the typical response from the new owner is, I didn't own the property at that time and I shouldn't be responsible for paying that. And those are some of the challenges that we run into that. And so our most recent report by our auditor was done July of '23 in reviewing the 2020 and 2021 taxes. We're still working on 2022 and 2023, and we're in 2024. So we're lagging behind on that. But in the 2020 and 2021 years, the auditor identified approximately $52,700 that was underreported in lodging tax revenues.
What year?
52,000.
Year.
Those were the 2020 and 2021 years combined.
Okay.
So when you translate that out, if you reverse calculate that, that's $1.7 million in lodging tax revenues that went undertaxed for that. The city spends a lot of, again, with our auditor, a lot of time and resources, tracking this information. This is probably the most major workload that our internal auditor works on an annual basis. And aside from a very small, minute administrative fee, all of this gets passed through to the Minot Visitors Bureau. So this isn't money that goes to supporting police officers and firefighters or fixing potholes in streets. We're just simply making sure that that money gets collected in accordance with the ordinances that the council has passed and make sure that Visit Minot gets the funding that they should be getting appropriated to them through that process. Was there any other questions you wanted me to answer, Mayor?
Are there any other, Steve?
Thanks. So I want to make sure I understand this. The $52,000, that was for 1 year or 2 years?
That was 2 years. That was 2020 and 2021. I don't have a breakdown specifically for each specific year.
So each year, Visit Minot is losing about $25,000 in revenues.
In those 2 years, yes.
And what's their annual budget, roughly?
I would defer to Ms. Shane Rock to answer that question.
Good evening. Our annual budget is roughly $700,000. It's fluctuated dramatically. In 2020, 2021, due to the pandemic, it was about 450 or 500,000. So it has obviously fluctuated quite a bit. One thing that I do just want to make sure I add to Harold's, the funding we get, we actually split. 2/3 comes to the Visit Minot and 1/3 goes to the All Seasons Arena when we're splitting that. The other piece that I would like to mention before I back up a little bit is when I talk about the amount of funds that we don't even know how much went out the door. When a hotel has sold, and the city doesn't find out until they're doing the audit a year or 2 or 3 later, and that the person who sold it was possibly 2 owners ago, there's really no way to capture that money. So I very much appreciate the throwing those dollars out there, because I think it's a great place to start. And I also would like to add to that we don't actually know how much additional funding is missed, because when that person goes back to where they live and the books are shut down because they're no longer belong to that flag of that hotel organization, there's no way to get that information. So that's the only other piece that I'd like to mention as perspective and food for thought. Mayor Ross, is it okay if I continue with just a couple other thoughts?
Hang there. I just want to make sure if there are any further questions of Harold.
I just want to provide a few more details that come out of the audit, just for some statistics here. So of that, so there was $52,692.66 that were identified as needing to be captured as underreported. There was also one refund in the amount of $1,090.18 where a hotel had overpaid And so we issued a refund for the overpayment with regards to that. There were 21 hotels that had underreported, so that $52,000 was over 21 hotels that had underreported. The largest capture of those came from 4 hotels. There was the one refund to the one hotel. We had 5 hotels that were 100% accurate in the reporting and documentation. There was one hotel which was closed for the period of the audit, so we had no opportunity to even assess the records on whether or not it was accurate. There were 2 hotels that were not audited due to ownership changes in September of 2021. And then we audited them from the time of the new ownership forward, but we weren't able to audit anything previous to the change of ownership. And at the time of the audit, this was July of last year, there was 2 hotels that were up for sale at that time. So those are just some other general statistics that you can know as part of that, it's a frequently reoccurring challenge for us.
Mark?
Harold, in that regard, so what is what does the aging of those receivables look like? In other words, what amount is delinquent? For instance, is they're not reported or didn't pay for that period that they were supposed to pay for? Is that a?
If I understand your question correctly, of the 52,000 that was identified as underreported and underpaid, the city was able to collect all of that. Does that answer your question?
Yep, I think so.
But we are still collecting 2023?
We're still auditing 2022 and 2023.
Steph?
I had a question for Harold.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carrie.
So connect the dots for me, Harold, or Mayor. How is like licensing and what city staff are proposing going to connect the dots? Like, I'm not seeing how this huge proposal is not like an overreach for $52,000. So I just need help getting there.
I think the concept is similar to First District Health's license, where it's required that it's non-transferable change of ownership. One of the challenges we've had is to know when that change of ownership happens more quickly, so that we can do an audit at that point and assess while those business owners are still here to make sure that they're have remitted all of their lodging tax appropriately. But without that trigger, we have no way of doing that. Again, we're 2 years in arrears of trying to assess this, and a lot of these property owners or business owners are no longer even in the community.
Steve?
Question, so I want to make sure I understand this. We found $52,000 owing, but we were able to recoup all of that, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yeah. That's what the city auditor's report said, that they were able to capture that $52,000.
I guess just a comment, I'm glad we were able to get that income, but, you know, it was earning somebody money in an account or an investment, and we didn't get the advantage of that in our accounts. And, you know, it strikes me as pretty inappropriate when people break the law and get away with it, even if it's only for 2 years and eventually get caught. I mean, that really offends my sense of justice, that, you know, people will renege on paying their taxes. You know, if we did that, the IRS would certainly come after us, and they should. But, you know, that bothers me. I'm glad at least we caught it eventually and we got the money back, but that troubles me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Dave?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I just wanted to verify some of the things that Harold was pointing out and also clarify a couple of things. The changing of the flag is very important. Like Stephanie had pointed out, oftentimes once they change flags, after a certain amount of time, they don't have access to those reservation records. And that's what the auditor uses to go back and verify that they collected the accurate amount of tax on those reservations. So that's problematic for us in the first place. Even if it's the same owner, not having access to the records is a problem for us. So what we've done is we've started, instead of doing biannual or every other year audits, we've gone to auditing the hotels every year to try and close that window down. And we're still having struggles with changes of the flag or ownership changes. And sometimes it's multiple ownership changes in the meantime, and it's very difficult to go back and try to collect that. And first of all, it's an unknown amount without access to the records, and then to try and assess that and collect it against a prior owner is very problematic. So the problem is we really don't know what's left on the table there and what hasn't been collected because we don't have the information. So by having some mechanism to notify the city when either the hotel changes flags or changes ownership, that can cue us to go and visit them and look at the records and make sure that everything is up to date prior to that transaction or prior to those people leaving town or turning it over to someone else. I just wanted to also clarify a few things from one of the speakers earlier. The ordinance provides for penalties for folks that either willfully fail to file a report or fraudulently file a report. They're charged interest, and there's a fee that they pay as well. And the ordinance also provides for criminal charges or civil responsibility. So again, once we get to that point, that's another thing that we would have to undertake, where we're either going to charge the owner or potentially manager of that establishment into municipal court, or take a civil action against that. And again, we still have to have the proper folks. We can't make a claim against the current owner for something that a prior owner did. So that's the idea from us, why this is beneficial, just so we can keep current on who's operating the hotel, who owns the hotel, and get this stuff taken care of in a timely manner.
So is
Currently,
it-
we have a little over $4,000 outstanding in fines that were levied to a hotel that they haven't paid yet as a result of an audit. And we're also struggling with that hotel to get their returns current. So I have visited that hotel and handed the manager a letter that said they needed to get these in or that there would be further legal action taken. And the reason I went and hand delivered that letter is because the certified letter that we sent to the owner got returned to us, it wasn't claimed. So, we do go through the process to do this. We're trying to keep on top of it.
So Dave, is it safe to say, we're talking about, the 52,000 that was eventually collected, but is it safe to say that because of the change of ownership, the change of flags, there's a potential that there has been some money that has been left on the table that we couldn't claim or can't claim?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I would say for sure that there was money that was left on the table that was not claimed.
Thank you.
Collected.
Carrie?
So this would probably be for Lisa. Reading over the rules and regulations of First District, there is a requirement that they inform you when there's a change of ownership. So my question is why the teeth are there for First District to impose some penalty or suspend a license if the change of ownership hasn't been noted with you, correct?
Yes.
Like, we already have this mechanism. It's just, I think the city helping First District in whatever way it can to enforce its ability to punish a person who has not notified them of a change of ownership, instead of having a parallel system that's identical to yours, right? Like having, and so if there's some teeth to yours and I change ownership and haven't told you and I get penalized for that, there's going to be an incentive for me, to let you know.
Yes, and we have paused or suspended their license. Rarely we do that because we try to work with people to try to get it done. But we do have some teeth, but we've got no ability to fine or accrue penalty in that matter. So, we can suspend them and hold their license, and that is a fiscal impact for them,
Right.
obviously. So we can do that.
So let's say in any given year, and just to estimate, let's say 100% of the hotels that have changed ownership, how many are informing you of the change of ownership and how many aren't? Just roughly.
There's just a handful that haven't.
Okay.
I guess over the last couple of years, I can maybe think of 3 hotels that that have not notified us of a couple of changes of
So the
ownership.
vast majority
So-
of the
oh.
change of ownerships are noted by
Yes.
First District.
Yes,
And then the city has the ability to get that information from you for our tax collection reasons, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Steph? Continue, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Ross. So there has been, just a good point of reference, I think, there's been 6 hotels sold in the past 5 months. And there's another one that's up for auction here almost in a month. So there is a fair amount of revolving doors, I guess. So perhaps the solution there is open lines of communication between the 2 entities. So how this conversation got started, I'd like to back this up just a little bit. It started 18 to maybe 24 months ago, and it was longer than that, but that's when I started communicating actively with different city staff and my board about a few different concerns. This really does boil down to essentially 2 concerns. And I also would like to point out, to the article that was in the Minot Daily News, and as always, Jill does a really good job. I chatted with her for 35 minutes that day, and of course, naturally, it's how it works. Only a small percentage of it lands in the paper, because otherwise we'd have a really, really, really thick Minot Daily News every day. So back to how we got here in the first place. The first concern, or one of the concerns that Visit Minot has, is hotels that are not operating as a true hotel. They are either an extended stay hotel that don't have the amenities for an extended stay hotel. In the process of this, I've been asked a few times, what does it mean to be an extended stay motel? It means that you need to have a kitchenette with a cooktop, a fridge larger than the dorm, cabinets, a dishwasher, or a separate sink from the bathroom. So what's happening is we've got a couple of hotels, one that has recently closed, recently as in since January, that are truly not operating as a hotel. They're operating more as an extended stay hotel without the amenities. In that same category of concern, there's a few things. One is the number of police calls that are going to those places. On average, according to the police department, an average hotel ranges between 16 and 30 calls at a hotel in the course of the year. We have hotels that are going from 80 to over 200 phone calls. And so that's kind of where, when we talk about that environment and the environment, that when we want people to come to visit Minot, or want to come to Minot and as visitors. The thing about it is Visit Minot is not regulators, and we're not proposing to be regulators. But at the end of the day, we are responsible to bring to light some of our concerns. Same facility, they're marketing themselves as you can draw your own conclusions. On the website, 4 bullet points. Say goodbye to expensive living. No deposit, no credit check. Monthly specials starting at $4.15. Amenities, mini fridge. Some people would argue that isn't necessarily operating as a hotel, possibly as a hostel would be another word to consider that. So that's one of the things that has come to light. In the other last little bit of that, and this is a little anecdotal, but it's the truth. During the state fair last year, during the first weekend of the fair, I received a phone call from a panicked staff member who had received a message over Facebook from 4 gals who were coming from Canada, and they were coming on a girls' trip to North Dakota State Fair, and they booked a hotel that online, and that it did not have when they arrived, what they viewed was different than what they expected to, based off of the online representation. And so we got them a different hotel. That's one example. Another example is during North Coast Fest. It was an elderly couple. And this couple, it's a North Dakota couple from outside the area. They booked another one of these hotels online, and granted, they did it late in the game where there's not a lot of hotels available. They paid for that online, showed up, and realized, in quote, when I was talking with this gentleman, I don't have a way to protect my wife and myself. We can't stay at that hotel, and now we're out that money. They had booked it on an online deal. Again, we can't protect all of the humans, right? But I bring this up because at the end of the day, we all represent the city, and you know what? You heard some from some very passionate people, and you know what? Those are the passionate people that are doing a really great job representing their hotels on a daily basis. And they're the people who, like the staff at Visit Minot, are working really hard to say, come to our town and we want you to have the best experience. And so when things like that happen and that there is a misrepresentation and businesses that I would argue aren't operating as a hotel, that does concern us. The second point that, again, this is a core, this is the core of the conversation that we've been having for a very long time. And that is updating the ordinance to, as a few people have said, adding some teeth. Dave has done a good job of kind of explaining, and he's trained me truly on a lot of this, which I appreciate. But, you know, there is an example, and I think that's the hotel he was referring to, where, you know, they had altered their paperwork. And there's no fine for altering the paperwork. And I completely understand what you're saying, Alderman Padragula, when you're talking about we're altering paperwork that's regarding hotel tax. And there wasn't a fine for that, because it's not in the, you know, I guess, does there be something in the ordinance say if you alter paperwork, then you get this? I'm not sure. But currently, there's a flat $500 fine, not per month, if you're not up to date on the taxes, and not a lot of authority to do something about it. And I guess that feels like it's apparent, you know, there's some hotels, a lot of hotels that are following it, and some that are not. At the end of the day, you know, we want a great reputation. Visit Minot is not a regulator, but I do think it's important that we bring this that this is discussed. Because we don't want we don't want to work in a mediocre environment. We're doing better than that, and Minot's worth that. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions? Carrie?
Oh, I mean, I'm just going to say it because I think this is what this is about. This is about a handful of hotels that people are annoyed with, that have people who can't afford housing in Minot, people who have criminal records and cannot obtain housing. And instead of addressing that problem and why that is, we are going after an entire industry where the vast majority are in compliance, letting ownership, you know, changes be known, paying their taxes and that. And so I feel like this is this huge solution in search of a problem, and the problem is a problem. However, you know, let's talk about that problem and not, you know, make this like, oh, this is about making the city welcoming or tourists and stuff. What it is people are annoyed about these hotels that are housing addicts and people experiencing homelessness and felons. And yet, you know, we get criticized for helping a homeless shelter get built. So, like, let's talk about that issue, because that's really what this is about. And we're going about it in a way that is tiptoeing around that, is my assessment.
Any other questions or comments for Stephanie? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on the police, I mean, following, you know, I've got a report from the PD here. Just, I know, Lisa, I know you talked about that you're only doing the sanitation, but on the public health side or the public safety side, and piggybacking on what Carrie is probably talking about, you know, I have a list of 7 properties in Minot, 7 properties that in 2023 totaled 728 total police calls. So if you average those out to 1 hour a call, we had Minot police officers spending 4.5 months at a hotel in Minot on one call or another. And so those kind of things, that kind of concerns me too. That, I mean, we're spending a lot of time. And maybe that's the discussion we need to have is what do we do about those problem ones?
Yeah.
You know? But, like I said, there is nothing on the table here. There is no proposals. This is all a discussion, an open discussion, solution-based discussion on how we can do it better if there is a better way of doing what we're doing. Unfortunately, those problem hotels are still online taking reservations. That's a concern, too, as well. So if there's no further discussion, or if there's more discussion or comments, Scott?
I have a few questions. I don't know exactly who to ask this one to, but I heard the word hostel used a few times tonight. Is there a different license between what a hotel and a hostel? Is there, I understand like long-term stay hotels might add different requirements. Is there different, like Lisa, do you have different requirements for that? Or how do we even know if something's the difference?
Remember, Mayor, we don't have a difference in a hostel. We don't even have a difference in a long-term stay versus a short-term stay hotel. Hotel, motel, anything beyond that would be out of our scope of licensing.
Thank you. And then my other question is for Dave, and I'm sorry, Dave, you're in the back of the room, but we heard a little bit about the fines. We heard a little bit about the amount of work that you're putting into this. And at one point, you had mentioned that there's a small administrative fee. Is it safe to say that the city is investing significantly more in this problem right now than what we're able to recoup through either fines or through that administrative fee?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Burlingame, we don't specifically track the exact number of hours that we spend on this, but presumably now, instead of auditing every other year and doing 2 years' worth of audits at the same time, it'd be extra trips to do it every year, and then trying to keep up with chasing after the delinquent reports and the ones that don't pay. It's a pretty frequent endeavor where we're spending time on this.
And would it be safe for you, would you say that the fines are not significant enough to actually recoup the amount of time that's being spent on it?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Burlingame, again, the fines and penalties are passed through as part of the taxes collected. So we charge an administrative fee, and that the rest of it goes through to Visit Minot and the All Seasons Arena.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No questions for you, Dave. You can sit down. Actually, never mind. No, I'm kidding. Again, I get the passion in the room. I get it all. I get the feeling, being defensive of the hospitality industry. I agree. It's not a road that I think anyone wants to or intends to go down. I sit on the Visit Minot board. I'm well aware of the issue of collecting lodging tax through the transfer of properties, right? It might be a property, again, if 2 years go by, there could be 2 years in lodging taxes that's not collected. The numbers that were quoted, just north of $50,000, that was in 2020 and 2021. There's also a global pandemic going on. What would those numbers have been in a regular year, call it a regular year? We talked about the hostile homeless shelter issue, Carrie, and I get your defensiveness of the issue, but it is a problem. It is a problem, and we as a city, through controlled conflict in this setting, hopefully we can move forward and try to find an issue. How do we address those issues? How do we incentivize development of those properties, make them more valuable, make them better for the community, turn them into an asset in the community? We recently just placed a couple of those properties, or attempting to place those properties, into the Renaissance Zone. But then we get raked over the coals for providing incentives because they're on North Broadway and they get traffic and they get views. Well, tell that to the neighbor that's finds needles in their backyard from the drug addiction problems. And I'm not throwing shade at someone with a drug addiction problem. They're sick. They need help. They need resources. F5 is doing their ribbon cutting here on Thursday. We need more assets like that and more services and more things in the community. There needs to be more teeth in an ordinance so that people aren't incentivized not to pay their fees and pay their taxes. Again, so there's not a magic bullet to this. There's the beginning of a conversations. There's the beginning of working together, and like Lisa had said from First District, there's some silos. We're even looking at it in the Alcohol Ordinance Review Committee to place anytime someone renews their hotel motel liquor license or beer wine license, and if they are a hotel motel establishment, they must be current on their lodging taxes. It's something that the council will see at some point. This is an issue. There is a problem. Do we need to maintain whether or not people have bed bugs or this or that? No, that's First District. We'll stay in our lane, but if we can work together in order to ensure that the community and the industry and the city of Minot and Visit Minot is all working, in locked arms, and I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to be a part of that conversation. I think this is, I don't want to say this is getting upset about nothing, but I think this is just a conversation, and I think through this night, we've seen a lot of constructive conversation, and we've identified a lot of issues, and we've brought it to the surface for some people that don't see that, but it is an issue. And when you talk about individuals that come to Minot, we do see the reviews. And I don't want to get in the, man, if we're going to start holding people accountable because of complaints that people write on Facebook, none of us would be up here. Most businesses wouldn't be in business. So again, we'll let that stay on social media. But again, if we can ensure that when people do come to Minot and we can steer them away from some of these troubled properties, which they are, I wouldn't want to take my kids into there. I've seen the Culture Service. I know people that work in law enforcement. I wouldn't feel safe there. So again, if we can do something to lift our community up and bring it together and get everybody at the table that has a seat there to ensure that we're doing something about it and we're trying to make it better and we're trying to find solutions and have a solution-based conversation, then I'm fine with that. And I don't know if it comes down to a subcommittee that needs to be put together. I'm not nominating anybody, but again, if we have to look in this and look at the ordinances and look at what we can do to work better with First District within our ordinances, work better for finance, then I think it's a conversation that can and should be had. So again, I'm not hurt about any of the conversations or the things that are said tonight. I think it's something that moves our community forward. I'm not the mayor, but Steph.
Go ahead, Steph.
Mayor, if I may, so, again, I'm probably taking our public information officer by surprise, but I'm plugged into dais number 7, and I have pulled up the tourist promotion taxes section of our city ordinance, if you want to direct everyone to that. So it's found in chapter 28.5 under taxation, article 2. It's called our tourist promotion tax. And when people are talking about lodging taxes, this is the section that you're going to find. So just a couple of things that I wanted to point out since we're talking about potentially adding some more teeth to this ordinance. Section 28.5/11 talks about the tax that's levied, and it's a pretty broad statute. It says there is hereby levied a tax upon the occupancy of any room or space furnished by any hotel or motel where the cost of occupancy is at the rate of $2 or more per day. Such tax to be 3% of the consideration paid by the occupant for the occupancy of such room or space. That tax is in addition to any other tax levied by the city, whether enacted prior thereto or hereafter. When you look at the definition of hotel, that's in the section that follows. Hotel shall mean any building or buildings, trailer or other facility which the public may pay for consideration to obtain sleeping accommodations. The term includes hotels and motels licensed by the state of North Dakota under Chapter 23-09, but the hotel shall not be defined so as to include hospitals, sanitariums, nursing homes, the YMCA or the YWCA. So the term hostel isn't really contemplated in our code of ordinances. If that's something that those in the hospitality industry see as a good distinction that you think needs to be made, I'd welcome suggestions on how to incorporate that and how so. And then our penalties provision is found in 28-19. It provides for both criminal penalties and civil penalties. It states any person, whether as a principal, accomplice, or co-conspirator, who one willfully fails to file a report. So in order to be charged criminally, you have to willfully fail to file the report or willfully fail to pay the administrator the tax imposed herein, or who willfully is going to file a false report. And then it provides for a fine not to exceed $500 or imprisonment by 30 days or both. I'm not aware of any reports that's been referred to our office in regards to falsified report or willfully paying, but it's a criminal statute, it's penal, so you have to be able to show that there's an intent required there. And then there's also civil penalties. So delinquent taxes are considered any portion of that tax liability imposed that's not timely paid on the due date, whether by non-filing or under-reporting or otherwise. It will draw interest at the rate of 9% per annum from the due date. And in addition, the administrator, which for the city is our finance director, shall assess a penalty equal to the greater of $50 or 5% of the amount of the tax found to be delinquent, which penalty shall become due and payable as additional tax, provided, however, that no interest shall be payable with respect to such penalty. So we do have some penalties in here. I have not delved so far into see what other cities are doing in this regard to this, but I can look into that research if that's something that interests the council, we're open to suggestions too.
Thank you, Steph. I know, Stephanie, you wanted to address the hostel.
Just to answer the question on a hostel, and there's no doubt there's, people who work in the industry every day that work for hotels that can probably answer that more clearly than I can. I represent I'm going to say the marketing side of it, so the consumer side of it. And that's the reason that we brought up the word hostel, is because when you think of it like a consumer, if you're looking for something online, and if a local hotel is no longer designated as a hotel, but instead a hostel, then when a consumer is looking for it online, that would be the first thing that they may go, wait a minute, what is this? What am I getting into, right? So that was just, again, I am not suggesting that as a solution. At this point, as many have pointed out, it's a discussion. And so it may be a possible solution in one way to just kind of designate that difference. The other point I wanted to bring up, somebody a few minutes ago had mentioned the city versus the state collecting. I very much appreciate, as you probably can see why, the city of Minot being willing to collect this. Fargo City does this, as does Grand Forks. I think it's Fargo and Dickinson that has the state collect it. And we appreciate the attention to detail, and I can see why some cities pass it off to the state. That the level of diligence, from what I understand from other CVBs, just simply can't happen to this level. The other thing that I would say is, as David mentioned, when the city decided to go from a 2-year audit to a 1-year audit, that made a big difference. And from what I understand, the trigger was because that happened, I think in 2019 was the first year, if I remember right, that it became every year there was an audit. Prior to that, there, from what I understand, was more money that left the city. Of course, we don't know how much, but that is what I'm understanding, and that was one of the triggers to going to a 1-year, so that it was monitored a little closer to when these incidents were happening.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anything further for the good of the order? We will move on to liaison reports. Let's start with Paul.
I've got nothing. My committees meet later this week.
Mark.
The MPO board continues to press forward, looking for a executive director, and we have a to-do list of about 13 things that we're working on as we continue to put this organization into reality.
Thank you, Mark. Scott.
I've got nothing.
Lisa.
Well, Alderman Janser just talked about the MPO board, but something that I do want to highlight, on February 23rd, there were some of us that enjoyed a tour of the CTE Center, which will be opening its doors very soon. And this has been a passion project of mine for a long time, so I'm anxious to see it come to fruition. If you're given the opportunity to attend a ribbon cutting or an open house, take advantage of it. It's a wonderful facility. It has state-of-the-art dental lab, simulation lab that is apparently really unique to any kind of training school within the Midwest. So it's been a long project, but we're glad that it's here, and look forward to bringing those students in and giving them a good education.
Carrie?
No, my committees meet this week.
Steve?
I had a lot of things to report, but unfortunately I'm under the weather tonight and I'm going to have a hard time reporting coherently, but let me just try. First of all, the Commission on Aging had its regular monthly meeting. One of the things I was pleased to learn is that NDSU Extension Service and the Commission are sponsoring a class on, excuse me, activity and balance for older people. It is already fully enrolled. They are starting a waiting list for next time. They hope to have it twice a year. It's a 7-hour class, 2 hours each day with a workbook. Sounds like it's a lot of homework there, but the aim is to help older people maintain their balance and independence and keep from falling, which is often a very unpleasant experience. If I remember my behavioral health journal correctly, once you've fallen, when you're elderly, once you've fallen and broken your hip, the odds are you'll be dead within 18 months. So, keeping mobile and active is really, really critical, and this is a wonderful program they're having, and I would encourage you to keep on top of it. Excuse me. There also will be on the 27th of this month, there will be a Meals on Wheels delivery day where people in the community are invited to come along and help deliver meals. It costs us about $11.50 to prepare each meal in the Meals on Wheel program. We suggest a free will donation of $5, and some federal and state funds help support that. Excuse me, but people get a nutritious meal. It's supervised by a dietitian, so they're getting something good here. We have 16 routes in the city with about 20 to 25 volunteers who go out every day. We have 400 recipients just in the city, plus another 1,000 throughout the county and I think neighboring areas. So it's a lot of people getting social contact and getting nutritious food. Every time they deliver, they bake 40 loaves of bread and break them down into servings of 2 slices each. So help support our farmers too. But anyway, lots of good stuff going on in Commission on Aging. Excuse me. The Local Emergency Preparedness Steering Committee had its meeting on March 7th. I guess one of the things that we talked about was a program that the state maintains that requires organizations, companies that maintain significant amounts of reportable numbers, hazardous materials. And if you're an emergency responder, you can have access to the database and see what chemicals are stored in a given facility. And they also have a neat tool where you can plot the plume of any substance that might be released, whether it be ammonia or some caustic or hazardous substance. So first responders get a sense of where something is and where it's going, which would be absolutely wonderful if an evacuation is needed. So lots of interesting and good things going on behind the scenes that most people will never learn about, which is why I'm mentioning them. Ward County 911 Committee had its monthly meeting, or quarterly meeting, I guess it is, on March 14th. The transition to a new high-powered, secure radio system for all public safety agencies in the state is proceeding apace. It's turning out to be much more expensive and complicated than anybody ever realized. But they're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. And it was interesting, too, we had a report on the calls that Central Dispatch gets. This year so far, we've had 1,900 emergency medical service calls, 1,100 fire calls, and 11,000 law enforcement calls for a large number of agencies. The Minot Police received 6,800 phone calls in the first 3 months of this year. Minot Fire Department received 940 phone calls. Excuse me. And the ambulance service received 1,884 phone calls for service. So there's obviously a significant usage of emergency resources and a lot of people, again, laboring behind the scenes tirelessly in really horrible weather sometimes, trying to keep us all safe. Every time I go to one of these meetings, I just come away with a renewed sense of gratitude and appreciation for our first responders. So a lot of stuff is happening out there, most of which most people will never be aware of, but it's really important in keeping the lifeblood of the community going. So that's it.
Thank you, Steve. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Is
So
there a
moved.
motion? We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Good meeting.